Good morning, everybody. I know those people are on Zoom. We just can't see you yet, which is absolutely fine, but I'm still going to wave at you. I know that you're out there. Your spirits, we can feel your spirit, which is great. Yay! Woo! That's great. So it is great to have each and every one of you a part of this worship service. Thanks very much to Carolyn, wherever she has... There. I should know that you're there, shouldn't I? Thank you very much. And maybe Nadine was a part of that. So awesome. Thank you so much for the chimes. I want to remind you that we are in Lent. We are traveling this journey together, and this is the fourth Sunday in Lent, but we are looking towards Holy Week and Easter. And so that is why we're really pleased that Joanne and Linda are doing the sign up for the Easter flowers, which will be a part of the celebration. Flowers that can be dedicated in memory and celebration of a loved one. And the sign up will be this Sunday in Centennial Hall. I'll tell you more about what's happening in Centennial Hall a little bit later. And next Sunday, though, is the last Sunday for sign up. Yeah. Now then, Esther, I think Esther's finished closing all the doors, which is very important. She might tell you why she closes the doors at the front of the sanctuary here.
Yes. Well, the reason I'm closing doors is because the steeple that's there is like a chimney. And so when we leave it open, all of the heat in here goes out and up through the chimney, and we waste a lot of energy. So by closing the doors, and there are signs on them to keep them closed, we keep the heat in the places where we'd like it. But I also would like to tell you that if you are interested in retrofitting your home for the climate crisis, I'm encouraging you to attend the meeting tomorrow night that's held by the Social and Ecological Justice Commission. This meeting is on how to retrofit churches, and we do have an expert, Stephen Collette, who understands about churches and heritage buildings. But we've invited property managers and caretakers, and there's going to be a lot of wisdom there. We're going to crowdsource the wisdom of these people that know so much about buildings and contracting. And so you're welcome to come. The link is on the website, our website, but you can also go to the Shining Waters Region website. Under the Justice tab, click on Ecological Justice, and you'll see the link there as well to register. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther. So you can see on the table, our community candles have been lit. Candles of affirmation, of reconciliation, of diversity, and the candle of our faith in Jesus. And what we are going to do now is place stones in front of the cross as symbols of our Lenten journey of contemplation. So I invite those people to come forward and lay the 4 stones. Thank you. These stones symbolize those times when we stumble and maybe fall, those times when we find it hard to continue. And so may we, like Jesus, become living stones of love, marking the way to justice as we explore this morning the contemplative practice of mandala circle meditation. And so let us center in a different way with music from Barry. Thank you. This building is a sanctuary that is built upon traditional territories of Aboriginal peoples located on our earth home. We acknowledge the enduring presence of First Nations on this land. And we acknowledge that both they and the earth continue to cry out for justice. We, as settlers on this land, have ignored those cries for too long. And so we commit to walking a path of repentance, of reconciliation, and of healing to ensure that we will never again use our power as a church to hurt others with attitudes of cultural or spiritual superiority. We promise to touch the earth gently, so that all life is nurtured. So I invite you to join with me in our prayer of call and lament. Please add your voices to the parts in bold. O God, the circle of your love is never ending. Your sacred design is embedded in all life. Our lives can become knotted and tangled by harsh judgments, where beauty and pattern is marred. Help us to circle back to you. Jesus, our teacher, you knew what it means to be put on trial, to be humiliated and condemned. May we reflect on the times we have fallen short and hurt others. Help us to circle back to you. Encircling spirit of compassion and justice, be among us now as we worship together. Help us to circle back to you. Amen. And let us sing a hymn from More Voices. It's number 83. That's a spiral-bound hymn book. If you are in the sanctuary and want to look at the music, let us sing together, Let My Spirit Always Sing. So let us just think a little bit about the context of our ancient story this morning. The story is entitled Jesus and the Woman Taken into Adultery. And it's a story that was not originally in the Gospel of John. It was added later. And most scholars think that it had circulated for quite some time, both in the oral tradition and possibly as part of another document that we have since lost. We no longer have that. We have pointers that there were earlier documents that were circulated before the Gospels, and not only the Gospels that are in our biblical canon. So what is it that is happening in this story? Well, we've got the religious leaders who are again challenging Jesus. They're challenging Jesus about the law. However, it's interesting that they don't seem to be following the law of Moses themselves. They have brought only the woman for punishment and judgment, not the man, as the law of Moses says both need to come forward. So I invite Anne. Anne Leighton Brown is going to read our ancient story of Scripture this morning.
A reading from John chapter 8, verses 2 to 11. Early in the morning, he came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery. And making her stand before all of them, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say?" They said this to test him, so that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." And once again, he bent down and wrote on the ground. When they heard it, they went away, one by one, beginning with the elders. And Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus straightened up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, sir." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go your way, and from now on, do not sin again."
So as that ancient story seeps into our hearts, let us receive a gift of music from the choir. They are going to sing Namaste, which is written by Mark Hayes. And what does Namaste mean? It means greetings to you.
Namaste.
Thank you. So what was it, do you think, that Jesus was doing in the sand? And any of you that were listening carefully might be thinking, so how could there be earth or sand? He's supposed to be in a temple. Well, the temple in Jerusalem, yes, there was the enclosed space, but there were also a lot of courtyards. And so it's likely that Jesus was in one of those courtyards that had hard-packed earth and sand in it. But what do I imagine him doing? As I was reading through that passage again and kind of immersing myself in that whole idea of Jesus bending down with a finger on the earth or in the sand, I imagine him doodling. And perhaps that's because when I was young, I used to love drawing swirls and circles and spirals on a beach that had been freshly washed by the. I used to love going down to the beach in Wales that we spent a lot of our time and doing that. It felt like it was a new creation. It was just me doing this on the sand. I wonder about you. I bet many of you doodle at some point, and it might not be in spirals and circles. It might be in more linear straight line patterns, squares, triangles, or maybe you are a pictorial doodler and you add straight lines and curves and create images and pictures. But do you know that doodling actually helps us to be more creative? It's more than just a way of stopping yourself from daydreaming or maybe falling asleep during a sermon. The act of drawing is creative in of itself. And what happens when we do creative expressions is it releases our mind. And sometimes the problems that we were stuck on kind of shift a little bit. And something happens and maybe some answers or ideas open up. And perhaps that's what was happening for Jesus. Or maybe he was trying to draw the attention away from the woman. Perhaps he was trying to take control of the situation by upsetting the expected pattern. Often when somebody challenges somebody else, the immediate reaction is that you respond back. He was kind of not falling into that pattern. And perhaps the simplest reason is he was giving himself some time. You know, when something comes out of the blue, you just need to give yourself a moment. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to take a moment. We will circle back round to that Jesus story, but we're going to go somewhere else just for now. I'd like us to think about the patterns that are all around us, that are part of the natural world and our lives. There are repetitive patterns that are part of circles in flowers. If you think of the unfurling of ferns, that hasn't quite happened yet, but those things are going to be happening in the spring. It's amazing that they all happen around that circular. Even, I read, the way that a piece of fruit rots is in a circular pattern. Who knew? I know, it's amazing what you can find on the internet. But geometrical patterns are all around us, and they provide a window into the interconnected fabric of creation. If you think of all the geometric patterns of say, a honeycomb, what about the scales on a fish? What about the neural networks in our brains? Everything has patterns to it. And the circle is a universal symbol of various cultures and different faiths. It kind of symbolizes the idea of infinity, never ending, of unity together, of wholeness. And I like what Empedocles said. He was a Greek philosopher, lived about 450 years before Jesus was on this earth. And he wrote this: the nature of God is a circle in which the center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere. He was a fan of Pythagoras, by the way. So he said, the nature of God is a circle in which the center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere. So this journey into sacred geometry, which begins with a line and a circle, and as more intersecting circles are drawn, there are different shapes that are created, or one shape in particular, that almond shape, that fish shape, I guess, the body of a fish. It's known as a mandala. And lots of the early Christian images of Jesus, the Byzantine images of Jesus, don't just have Jesus with a halo, they have Jesus in that almond shape. And in some of those early artistic works, you get Jesus and his hand is outside of that shape. That is not a mistake. That is not the artist saying, oh my goodness, I haven't got enough room for the hand. Oh, well, we'll just stick it outside. That is not, it's very intentional. It is pointing out into the world that Jesus, even though not alive in the regular sense, is still active in the world. I just think that that is so cool. There are things in art that we can just pass us by, but if we look carefully, the artist is telling us something. And if you think about those circles that are intersecting and you join at the points of intersection, you will get an equilateral triangle, a triangle that is a symbol of the Trinity. 3 identical sides, 3 identical angles. And those triangles tessellate, which is very, very cool, the way that they all fit and make different patterns. And in Islamic tradition, the tessellating triangle is all a part of spiritual expression. And it's interesting that this geometry, earthly measurements, was the confines of priests. Only priests could engage in geometry in ancient times. And we know what gender priests were. So if you think about the sacred buildings of, say, Celtic Stonehenge, the pyramids of Egypt, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, the Hindu temples in India, they're all dependent on these laws of geometry. And what about all those glorious cathedrals that are around the world and those ancient ones in Europe? They also use sacred geometrical principles. And today, the stonemasons in Winchester Cathedral are redoing the window in the north transept. But they are not using today's technology. They are only using a compass and a rule, just like those original masons did. And I have to think, I imagined somebody with a laptop hiding it in the cloisters, checking out the measurements to make sure that it's okay, But probably those people have more faith perhaps than I do. And it's very, very cool that women are now a part of this creative expression of the design of sacred spaces. And I don't know if you've come across Sophie Hacker. She is a very, very cool person. And one of the things that she does is look at the reordering of liturgical space. It's at all sorts of creative designs, particularly stained glass windows. And what she is doing is she's trying to honor the vision of the original builders whilst creating a fresh expression for those people who are trying to follow in the footsteps of Jesus in this century right now. So I know not all of you are in this sacred space, but those of you that are here, maybe you can remember, have a look around this space. Think about what is very special to you. Maybe you are new to this building and you are looking at it with different eyes than perhaps many people that have been here for decades. And if we think about moving into the redevelopments, might there be a fresh expression in this space, one that honors the historical building that it is, but perhaps expresses, Indigenous people, for example, whose land this building is created upon? What might we do that expresses our faith and our ministry today? We are already thinking about the outside of the building that faces onto Young Street. And it's very clear that we don't make a big splash about who we are and what it is that we are doing. So we are thinking about, okay, so what might we do differently on that front space that's adjoining Young Street? What creative expressions could we add to that that would perhaps give an inkling as to who we are as a people of faith? If you are interested in imagining, if you are interested in kind of getting your creative juices going, then please come and talk to me. I know that Jane Wedlock also is interested in that kind of idea. If you know of somebody, perhaps that isn't a part of this congregation, but has that kind of creative bent, we would love to get together and see what ideas we can come up with for the outside of the building. I think it would be very, very cool. So let's circle back to that idea of the circle being a shape of wholeness and infinite mystery. I guess these two stained glass windows up here, actually there are more circles. The more you look around, the more circles you actually find. Anyway, at some point, have a good look around, see how many circles that you can find. But the idea is of that circle having no beginning and no end. The idea of the center of the circle being God. And the words that open up that Gospel of John are kind of like a spiraling circle for me that says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And later in that book, we know Anne read a story from the 8th chapter. It's a powerful story, one that refused to be forgotten, that wasn't originally in that gospel, but it was added to that gospel because clearly it was a story that had power. It was something that needed to be told and retold. So eventually, one of the later editors added it into that gospel. So how do the words and actions of Jesus that we have in story form become a pattern for our lives? Do we need to look within ourselves, to look deeply into our hearts and consider, are the times when we judge other people? Perhaps we could look at that and try and change how we respond. Jesus spoke one-on-one to the woman and asked her to change. There's a whole lot in which we need to change in this world. But if you look at the context of that story, what about the challenge of changing our sexist attitudes? What about thinking about ways that we can campaign against the use of violence in many, many forms? And what did Jesus do? He paused again. He bent down and he drew in the ground a second time. And this time he was creating space for the religious leaders in particular, but for everybody to think about, okay, so how can I respond differently? What am I going to do? How am I going to respond to Jesus's words of, let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at this woman? So many tactics and things that we can do to resist injustice, to not just stand quietly by. So let us create some space in our minds right now. We're going to use a mandala meditation. The idea is that you empty your minds and focus, your mind comes to center. And for us as Christians, the idea is that at the center is God. So I invite the slide. All right, so we have got a mandala there. It's a stained glass window. So I invite you all to feel the floor under your feet. Get yourself into a comfortable position so you are supported by the pew. Try and relax. And breathe slowly and deeply, trying to empty those thoughts from your mind just for a moment. And with your eyes open, look gently at the mandala on the screen. Try and relax your eyes a little so that the image goes a little bit blurry to begin with. Just take a moment. Keep gazing. Keep breathing. Concentrate on the shapes and the patterns and the colors. If you get distracted, just let that thought float gently away and bring yourself back to the center of this beautiful mandala. And let's sit just for a moment. And bring your attention back to your breathing. Breathe deeply a couple of times. And bring your attention back to the full space, wherever that happens to be. So what we have just done is we have used an artistic visual creation of a mandala. The other way of using that is to create your own. It could be on a beach somewhere. Or you can use a pattern that has already been created, but you color it in. And the action of coloring is contemplative in of itself. You can search online for any of these patterns. I've just printed off a few. They are on the baptismal font here. You are very welcome at the end of the service to come up and take one and engage in this practice sometime in the week. If there aren't enough there, then we will photocopy some more for you. The other way, of course, is music helps us to center. It helps us to focus in on what's important. And in this next hymn that we are going to sing, there is a phrase that says, in sound or silence, sight or smell, may we some token find that makes your living presence known to body, to soul, and to mind. So let us sing this More Voices hymn. It's number 80, Beyond the Beauty and the Awe.
Beyond
as we come to the time where we give from a place of gratitude, where we offer not only our money for the support of the ministry in this place, but we offer what is deep within our hearts. Maybe we offer a creative gift. Maybe we offer a gift of time, being with somebody who needs presence, who needs support. Whatever it is that we have to give, I hope that we can give it from a place of joy and centered in God's love. So I invite the offerings to be taken right now, the offerings that will be taken in the sanctuary here. I know that those people that are on Zoom also support the work of this place and give their offerings in different ways. I invite Esther to come forward and lead us in prayer.
Let's pray together. Spirit of hope, sometimes when we are cycling through life, we hit potholes of grief. And though they leave, they come back and shock us again. Also, though, joy repeats, lifting us unexpectedly, catapulting us to oneness with what is. For now, we worship and breathe, alive. And knowing this cycle, Spirit of Hope, we step into the rest of this week with public, intentional, and explicit plans to be inclusive and to affirm the value in each unique way of living around us. We are very thankful for the people who are creating webinars and workshops to widen our understanding of what this looks like. We expect to be lifted up and then cast down as we work towards being better. We will carry on. In our community are some who are grieving and some who are rejoicing. We share our strength with those who are weak, knowing that they will share back when we slide into another pit of despair. We think now of those who have lost a loved one. Those separated from family. Those terrified about future expenses. Those without a job. Those without a home. Those feeling misunderstood and alone. Those in pain. We are thankful for saints who have walked on the spirals below us, lighting our way, like St. Patrick, and those who walk with us, who have fed and welcomed people out of the cold here in our church. We are thankful for our interfaith community and the chance to learn together about women and faith at the Interfaith Symposium. And we think of those of the Muslim faith entering Ramadan this week. While we grieve the ongoing climate strains on our planet, the loss of life and home, for example, in Madagascar, Malawi, and Mozambique, from record-breaking Cyclone Freddy, and the fear of water carrying away life and homes in California after record-breaking snow and rainfall, we are also deeply thankful for the rock of our planet, steadily turning past the equinox tomorrow, and for an opportunity to network with other churches to share ideas about decreasing church emissions tomorrow night, and about the hour of darkness and silence on Saturday when we turn off our electricity for Earth Hour to let the earth breathe. There are moments of crashing down in the news this past week. The burying of the dead from the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, the tensions rising in Southeast Asia as Australia buys missiles from the US and forms a pact with the United Kingdom and the United States, stressing relations with China, and as the German minister appears to acknowledge an independent Taiwan. We hope, Spirit of Hope, for wisdom and long sight from those in power to care for the future and for the least. We think of people unnoticed and suffering, the Uyghur Muslims in forced internment, the Rohingya waiting helplessly for access back into Bangladesh, spiraling conflict in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, putting 10 million children at risk. We recognize that a bank failing in the US makes more news than 340 migrants, including 103 unaccompanied minors who have been found abandoned in a truck in Mexico. We share with you our anger about injustice that leads desperate people to borders that are closed by clutched fists. We remember the gang violence in Haiti and the toxic inflation in Argentina. We share with you our concern for all. And then we remember the moments of hope, Spirit of Hope, as for the first time this last week, it seems, a colonel is sentenced publicly to 7 years in jail for raping a 14-year-old girl in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And then an arrest warrant is put out for Putin, and Finland is allowed to enter NATO. Today, we look together at this complex life we love, and together we choose to walk loudly and confidently on, carrying hope around the next turn as we sing the Lord's Prayer in Voices United 959.
As we come towards the end worship service, I would like to invite you all into Centennial Hall when the worship finishes. It's one of the Sundays where we're having coffee and juice, but we're also having pie. Yes, P-I-E. I'm not going to say anything more about that other than it's our vision keepers who are keeping the vision of this affirming congregation. They are hosting this time of pie, and each of us will be at a table, and we encourage you to bring your pie and your coffee and whatever, join us at a table. And there will be some conversation, there will be some sharing, and then we'll be moving on so that you can be present with each of the 4 vision keepers that are here today. And I just want to say, let us hold DJ in prayer. DJ is back home. He was in hospital, but he is back home, sleeping and recovering. So please hold DJ. His spirit will be with us as we are eating pie, I know. And just to let you know that Barry has not been doing a postlude throughout Lent. It is one of those ways of marking that this is a different season. It is a continuing, it is a journey through the Sundays of Lent, into Palm Passion, into Good Friday, and eventually into the celebration of Easter. But that doesn't mean that we don't sing. So I invite you to join your voices together with the hymn, Put Peace into Each Other's Hands. This is a More Voices hymn 173. So may we live that circle of love that is never ending, that circle that is centered with God's love. May we eat pie with joy. May we eat pie and learn something new. May we be Jesus in the world, in the way that we act, the things that we do. So let us share our blessing one with another as we sing between darkness and light. Go in peace.